Last night, Mark Carney didn't just respond to U.S. trade threats, he shattered them live on international television. We're talking $750 billion in trade, energy markets in chaos, and American manufacturers scrambling as one bold Canadian leader called the bluff of the most powerful country on earth. And what happened on that broadcast didn't just make headlines, it rewrote the rules of North American diplomacy. Stay tuned, because what comes next will shock even seasoned political analysts. Just 48 hours ago, Vice President J.D. Vance went on Meet the Press with a warning that shook Ottawa to its core. He didn't sugarcoat it. Canada must comply, open its markets, or face a 25% tariff on every single export. No exceptions, no negotiations, only compliance or economic disaster. Wall Street reacted immediately. Analysts scrambled. $750 billion in annual trade hung by a thread. Within hours, the Canadian dollar dropped 2 cents, energy stocks plummeted, and automakers called emergency board meetings. Make no mistake, this wasn't diplomacy. This was economic warfare disguised as policy. And then what happened next would shock the entire continent. But here's where the story takes a wild turn. Instead of issuing a carefully worded statement or waiting for diplomatic channels, Mark Carney picked up the phone and called CNN. "I'll go live tonight," he told them. No pre-recorded speech, no spokesperson, just me in front of the cameras against anyone from the Trump administration who wants to defend these threats. The network scrambled. Within 6 hours, Carney was confirmed opposite J.D. Vance, primetime, live, with Jake Tapper moderating what was being billed as the most consequential political interview of the year. Social media exploded. Hashtags started trending across 2 countries. This wasn't just news anymore. This was a showdown, broadcast to 40 million viewers across North America. And the world waited, holding its breath, because what Carney said next would not just defend Canada, it would change the game for U.S.-Canada relations forever. The cameras roll. Jake Tapper turns first to J.D. Vance. "Canada is America's largest trading partner," he says. "Why threaten them with crippling tariffs?" Vance is polished, practiced. "Jake, this isn't about friendship or enemies. It's about fairness. Canadian dairy tariffs hurt American farmers. Their border serves as a conduit for illegal drugs. Their digital taxes target our tech companies. America first. That's what we're doing." But then Tapper turns to Carney, and that's when the room goes silent. Carney leans in, calm, focused, dangerous in his composure. "Mr. Vice President," he begins, "almost everything you just said is factually incorrect. The American people deserve to know the truth before your government damages the most successful trading relationship in modern history." One by one, he dismantles the claims. Dairy tariffs? Canada's supply management is dwarfed by $46 billion in U.S. subsidies to farmers last year alone. Digital taxes? Fully transparent within international law, while U.S. tech giants extract hundreds of billions from Canadian consumers. Border issues. Over 90% of illegal crossings originate at the southern U.S. border, not Canada's. Vance tries to interrupt. Carney doesn't flinch. Every claim is met with precision, evidence, and calm authority. And here's the kicker. He warns of the consequences for Americans if tariffs are imposed: higher energy prices, disrupted supply chains, skyrocketing manufacturing costs, and job losses across swing states. The studio is frozen. Millions of viewers are witnessing what could be the most consequential debate of the year. And then Carney drops the hammer. He pulls out a single sheet of paper and points to it like a general briefing troops before battle. "This isn't theory. This is real-world impact. Mr. Vice President," he says, "a 25% tariff on Canadian imports doesn't just hurt Canada, it devastates American families, businesses, and key industries. Energy shock. 4 million barrels of Canadian oil flow into U.S. refineries every day. Tariffs hit, and gas prices spike immediately in Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Michigan. $1, maybe $2 extra per gallon. Defense and infrastructure. 70% of America's F-35 jets use Canadian aluminum. Bridges, skyscrapers, homes rely on Canadian steel and lumber. Tariffs, costs explode, factories stall, jobs vanish. Political fallout. Swing states crucial to U.S. elections are exposed. Carney isn't just defending Canada. He's holding up a mirror to U.S. voters, showing them exactly what a trade war would cost them. Then comes the boldest move. Carney doesn't just defend, he warns. If you impose these tariffs, Canada will respond immediately and proportionally. Bourbon from Kentucky, Harley-Davidson motorcycles from Wisconsin, agricultural exports from Iowa, all at risk. We know exactly which congressional districts depend on Canadian trade. A rhetorical punch. Do you really want to risk your own voters to make a political point? The studio is stunned. Viewers are riveted. And one thing is clear. This isn't a negotiation. This is a warning. And it lands harder than anyone anticipated. The impact was immediate and explosive. Within 1 hour of the broadcast, Carney's clip had been viewed 15 million times across social media. Hashtags trending from Vancouver to Washington, D.C. In Canada, the response was electric. Political parties across the spectrum praised Carney's bold stance. Even conservative opposition leaders, typically critical of the Liberals, acknowledged he defended national interests brilliantly. Public opinion surged. Polls showed 78% of Canadians approved of Carney's handling of the trade threats. His favorability jumped by 12 points overnight, a meteoric rise that pundits are calling historic. Across the border, Washington scrambled. Republican senators from key swing states received emergency calls from businesses and constituents. The Michigan Chamber of Commerce issued urgent warnings about supply chain disruption, and the American Petroleum Institute quietly notified the White House of spiking energy prices. Even Democratic lawmakers seized the moment. A resolution opposing the proposed tariffs was drafted by the Senate Minority Leader, citing reckless economic policy and political grandstanding. For 6 hours, the Trump administration remained silent. No statements, no tweets, no official response. And when President Trump finally spoke at 3 a.m. on Truth Social, his post was telling. He tried to portray Carney as desperate, but the narrative had already shifted. Across North America, one thing became clear. Carney didn't just defend Canada. He reshaped the conversation, exposed the real risks of a trade war, and forced Washington to confront the consequences of its threats. Carney's live confrontation didn't just make headlines, it sent shockwaves across global politics and economics. Allies and rivals were watching. If the United States can threaten its closest trading partner, what does that signal to Europe, Japan, or South Korea? Analysts say trust in Washington's reliability is now under unprecedented scrutiny. China's state media jumped on the story, framing the confrontation as proof of Western disunity. Meanwhile, NATO officials were quietly questioning whether America's trade aggression could undermine strategic alliances. For the U.S., the stakes are enormous. Swing states are now exposed, energy markets are volatile, and manufacturers are reconsidering supply chains that rely on Canada. Every misstep risks hundreds of thousands of jobs and billions in lost GDP. For Canada, the broadcast was a victory. Carney demonstrated that smaller nations can assert sovereignty, defend their economic interests, and stand toe-to-toe with global powers. Some experts argue this could reshape North American diplomacy for decades, setting a precedent for how allies negotiate in the age of economic nationalism. And here's the dramatic twist. This isn't over. While Carney called the bluff live on television, the potential for retaliation, tariffs, or renewed negotiations keeps the political and economic tension at a fever pitch. Every decision from here could define the trajectory of U.S.-Canada relations and influence the global trade order. Now let's step back and look at the chessboard. This wasn't just a clash over tariffs. This was strategy, power, and political theater. On one side, J.D. Vance and the Trump administration tried to project strength. Threats of 25% tariffs were meant to pressure Canada, secure concessions, and appear tough to U.S. voters. But in doing so, they risked political and economic chaos at home. On the other side, Mark Carney didn't just defend Canada. He exposed the hidden costs of these threats in real time. He revealed tariffs would hurt American families first, not just Canadian exporters. Political leverage could backfire in critical swing states. Canada's economy is intertwined with the U.S., but retaliation could be surgical, targeted, and devastating for American industries. Here's the subtle power play. Carney forced America to reconsider the optics and consequences of unilateral aggression. He wasn't just defending trade. He was shaping the narrative, putting political pressure on U.S. lawmakers and asserting Canada's sovereignty in a way rarely seen in modern diplomacy. And for viewers watching tonight, this is a masterclass in geopolitical strategy disguised as a live TV confrontation. What looked like a policy debate was actually a high-stakes battle over influence, leverage, and public perception. The hidden agenda is clear. Canada wanted to show strength, protect its economy, and make sure the U.S. can't bully it, all while keeping the moral high ground. And it worked. Let's pause and take stock, because what just unfolded isn't your typical trade debate. Canada faces threats. The U.S. pushes tariffs. Markets tremble. Swing states are exposed. Mark Carney didn't flinch. He called the bluff live, laid out the real economic consequences, and forced America to confront the fallout before any policy was even enacted. Think about this. Energy prices could spike. Jobs could vanish. Key U.S. industries could collapse, all in a matter of hours. And Canada, standing firm, sovereignty intact, global credibility skyrocketing. If you're wondering what comes next, stay tuned. The negotiations haven't started, the potential retaliation hasn't been triggered, and the stakes are higher than ever. So here's the takeaway. Last night, Mark Carney didn't just respond, he reshaped North American diplomacy. He exposed the hidden risks of aggressive U.S. trade tactics, protected Canada's economy, and sent a clear warning. Smaller nations don't have to accept ultimatums from bigger powers. What happens next could define the next decade of U.S.-Canada relations and potentially reshape global trade dynamics. If you want to stay ahead of these breaking political shocks, understand the real-world consequences before they hit markets, and see how global power plays unfold in real time, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. This is State Brief, and we break down the moves that most politicians and corporations hope you'll miss.